Thank you for listening to the BJJBrick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back, my friends, to the BJJBrick Podcast. This is episode 325. Today, we're going to trim the fat. And we're not trimming the fat from your steak. We're trimming the fat from your BJJ. I'm Gary. I'm here with Byron, and we have been talking a lot about Gregg Popovich, the famous basketball coach, and we've been doing a lot of his quotes. Here's another good one for you. I'm not one to blow smoke at my players. They kicked our butts on the offensive boards, and it's not because the ball came their way. And what I think about that is the other team, the opponent, had more hustle, had more heart, had more desire. We're not always going to be more talented than the other person we're playing. In basketball, we may not be bigger or be able to jump higher than the person we're playing against or the team we're playing against. But if we have heart, if we go after everything, we go after every loose ball, go into every scramble and give it everything we got, we're going to come out on top a lot of times. And I think that's what Popovich is talking about. Their team did not hustle as much as the other team that game.
Yeah, that's a great quote, and we've had several from Gregg Popovich in a row, legendary coach, and I think it's fun to bring in those examples from off of the mat and those examples from outside the jiu-jitsu world and learn from those coaches as well. And I like how he's not going to not blow smoke at him. He's not going to lie to him and say, we should have won that game or, give some excuse. No, we got beat. And that's the way jiu-jitsu sometimes goes. Sometimes you go out there, you do your best, and you get beat. Like that's part of life. Even if you do your best, you give it all your heart. Sometimes you're just person's just better, or their game matched up better against your game, and to not get off the mat and think I should have won that, or like I should have. If you go out there and the guy takes you down, passes your guard, submits you for mount, and you get up and you feel like, man, I really had a chance there and I blew it. Where was your chance? Reality is you never got your game going, and he just took off on you. Like maybe things could have been different if you would have started a little differently, but the odds are the same match would have happened again. It didn't match up well for you. And to not live in that false reality, because I've seen people come off the mats and be like, I could beat that guy. Well, the score was 20-0 before he got submitted. I don't know. Like, maybe the guy's basically a belt or two above your level right now. Maybe the weight classes are a little bit mixed matched here or something like. But just live in that reality. Sometimes you get beat, and that's sometimes when you're Gregg Popovich, your team will get beat, and don't need to blame the referees, don't need to look for excuses about traveling or that stuff. Look towards the future. How could you improve? Maybe you got some weaknesses exposed, and go to work.
I like what you said there, Byron. It's a game. Sometimes you're going to get beat. Maybe your weaknesses got exposed. Get to work. I like that part, get to work. It kind of reminds me of your audio book, 6 BJJ training games. And, one of them you have is Nike Method. And, like you just said, get to work. Nike Method is just do it. We go back to Popovich's quote, maybe something got exposed, just do it. Let's start working on it. Let's put some time in the gym. Let's get that going. But that's kind of what made me think about it. But if you go to the link on the BjjBrick podcast for the store part of it there, you'll see the six BJJ training games. It's an audio book by Byron. It's basically about an hour long, an hour and 2 minutes. And it's just games that you can play with your teammates during practice. They may not know you're playing them. You may know you're playing them. It's just going to lead to more teamwork, and it's going to get you to be a better grappler. And, there's 6 different ones. And I know I've talked about it numerous times, but my favorite is backwards grappling. And what that means, if I always pass to my left, I'm going to try to pass to my right. If I set up my half guard on my left side, today I'm going to set it up on my right side. And I'm going to work different things. If I Kimura the left arm, I'm going to work on Kimura on the right arm. And not only is that going to help me everybody's used to me going for one certain arm Kimura, and now my training partner's going to get Kimura on the other side. So it's going to make both of us better. So check it out. It's got really good reviews, and thanks to the one and only Byron Jabara.
Yeah, the cool thing about Backwards Grappler is it has a potential to really open up your game as far as offense. And if you're Kimura, my other side, you have all of the knowledge of how to do this Kimura, but it doesn't really fit well with your body. And so one aspect of it is to know how to do it. You check, that's done. And another aspect is to get your body to perform that. That's what you're working on. So you've cut out a lot of the work because the knowledge access that you've gained from the good side, the good half, your dominant side, is already there. Just get it to work a little bit better or differently for your offside, and man, things will really open up because nobody's used to defending that other side, or maybe it doubles the chances that you could land that or set your Kimura up. Yeah, that's a good one, Gary. I'm glad that that one's working for you.
Yeah, I remember maybe 5 years ago, me and Byron would be grappling, and we'd get stuck in the same spot a lot. Byron trying to pass my guard, me on my back, and we may spend a whole round there. And I remember you started going the other way, and I never really put two and two together. And I remember you'd pass my guard with ease. You'd start going the other side, and it was a little awkward. It was a little awkward for you, but I think it was even more awkward for me. That's why you were doing better. And I never realized it, but as you kept doing that, I kept getting better. And on times when we weren't training together, if I had a lower level partner, I was setting up on that side so I could work that. And, without even me knowing it, I was getting better because you were playing Backwards Grappler.
Man, yeah. Well, check that out. And like Gary said, it's in our brand new, still new store smell of the BJJBrick store.
Hey, when is the grand opening?
It's open right now. It's today.
Everybody has the grand opening celebration after it opens. We had the Chamber of Commerce come in for a ribbon cutting ceremony.
Yep.
Well, actually, it wasn't the Chamber of Commerce, but Byron and his wife held a ribbon, and I cut it so we went through the formalities. But it was pretty cool.
That sounds kind of oddly symbolic of something else. I don't know what it would be. Me and my wife hold something, and you. I don't know. That sounds weird.
Come on, Byron.
I'm trying not to use my imagination
PG.
too much. Okay. Yep. Gary, I've got an off the mat lesson I'd like to share with you and our friends out there. And I had one last week, and it was I went to a instructor development course taught by the state. And it's really geared towards law enforcement, but they brought in a few other categories of people, me being fire, and I was the only one from the fire side. And so all of the jokes as far as, fireman this or that, were kind of on me. And there were people from different bureaus and different agencies, but they were all kind of, carry a pistol with them or handcuffs. Like they're all kind of a law enforcement swing to it.
Byron, don't you carry handcuffs? Fuzzy handcuffs?
Yeah, pink fuzzy handcuffs. It just, light some candles. I guess I'm blowing candles out as a firefighter. But at the end of it's a 4-day class, pretty, really good curriculum. Up there in front of the class, teaching a lot of things is kind of, they get you, that's what we're doing. You're learning how to be an instructor. And so a lot of these officers will go out and they'll teach, shooter development classes or different public safety things to people, and basically you're learning how to be a teacher. And they boil it down to just 4 days, and so it's a lot of getting up there and teaching. The very last day, you have to get up and do a 15-minute presentation, and what they at the end of this 15 minutes, they'll start clapping and they'll say thank you. And so if you're not done, you're done. It's a hard cutoff, and I practiced my speech the day before my presentation. And it was 15 minutes. And I'm looking at it like, man, okay. And every time I've gotten up there before, I kind of started with a little bit of a joke or some bit of humor because just to kind of jolt them out of the routine that we were in. A lot of people would get up there and be nervous, and they just get up there and do the minimum or whatever. I wanted to kind of loosen things up, and I was already the butt of a lot of jokes being the only firefighter in there, so I wanted to show that I have a sense of humor. And I didn't have time to tell any kind of a joke and do my entire presentation. It was going to take too long. And so what I did, I kind of cheated a little bit, Gary.
No, not you.
It was my turn to go up. I'm walking up there, and I have to set up my thumb drive and get my PowerPoint queued up and all this stuff. And so while I'm doing that, I've started. But they haven't started the timer yet because I haven't actually started. So I go up there and I have this. It is a dumb joke, but I go, man, I could have used one of you police officers last night. And the whole room kind of looked at me like, what? And I said, I went out, I was having a good time and probably in the wrong side of the city. And I found myself, some guy pulled a knife on me and took all my money. And he's looking at me like he's going to stab me and try to kill me. And I was like, man, you can't kill me now. I said, I'm a firefighter. I'm about ready to go speak in front of a bunch of cops tomorrow. If you kill me now, you got to take my place and do my presentation. And the guy took off running. I just made up a story. But like that's how terrifying it is to be a public speaker and to be a firefighter speaking in front of a bunch of cops. Like, it's super scary. The guy ran away. It's kind of like the old, it's better to be the one in the casket than the one giving the speech. Like, which one's more scary? And, it got received. People kind of laughed or maybe, oh, man, we got the one comedian up here. It's the firefighter. But I got to sneak in a little bit of a joke, cut the tension of the room before my 15 minutes even started. So that was kind of a nice way to kind of work outside the rules and bring something in. And I just, I think about jiu-jitsu, using a little bit of bonus time or using your time effectively. And if you want to, it obviously depends on your class setup. But if maybe you get there a little bit early, you could drill a few things with a teammate, or if you could stay a little bit later, you could do a little bit extra rolling. That happens quite a bit at Fox Fitness where I train. Just try to sneak in a little bit of time, because if you roll for, let's just say 15 minutes, like my presentation, that's 15 minutes of training. If you get to roll one extra round every time, in 3 sessions, you've gained an entire rolling session. That really adds up. And so just using your time as effectively as you can. And for me, I wanted to throw a joke in there. I didn't have the time to do it within my presentation, so I just had to take a little bit from beforehand.
Well, Byron, you are known for stretching rules. I've known you. You are very intelligent. Think out of ways to make fake press passes and stuff. You surprise me all the time with the stuff you do. But I really like what you're saying there. Be effective with your time. One of the main things we hear about, people quitting jiu-jitsu is, time and money. I don't have time to go to the classes, but even so, let's go back to that. I don't have time except maybe training once a week. I've got a whole free Thursday night. I got nothing going on. Like what you said, let's say it's Thursday night, one class a week is all you can go to, but you stay that extra, round, and in 3 times you now have done a whole different rolling session, a whole nother rolling session. You can turn it into almost like you're working twice a week. We have to, if you want to get better and you enjoy this, if you're not going to be listening to this podcast if you don't enjoy jiu-jitsu. And I was in a training session today, speaking of training sessions, Byron, and, one thing we had to get in our little groups and talk to people in the groups and, hey, what do you really love? Tell 2 things that you really love that you couldn't do without. And, one was my family and the other was jiu-jitsu. And, a couple of people looked at me like, jiu-jitsu? And I was like, man, that's really what I like to do. I when I'm doing it, I love it. And I don't have a ton of time. I have a demanding job where I work a lot of hours. I have a family. I've got kids in sports. I got all that going on. But when I have got really effective with my time, I have got it down to a science. I find every little scrap of time I can carve out to train jiu-jitsu. And Byron knows when I do train jiu-jitsu, I have the time, I try to be the first one there and the last one to leave. So, I like that. Be efficient with your time, and not just for jiu-jitsu. I mean, I need to be efficient with my time at work. With this podcast, to try to find time for podcasts, we have to be efficient with our time. And, that has helped me in jiu-jitsu, podcasting, work, family life. I coach basketball, doing that too. It's trying to find time, but I love doing all of it, and I will be efficient as possible so I can do all this.
Yeah, that's good, Gary. And we didn't mention it. Joe's not here today. He's not feeling well. He got some sort of a cold or maybe a light flu or who knows what he's got. But he's like a few hours ago, he's like, I don't think I'm gonna make it, guys. I'm really not doing too hot here. And so that's
he said he said he was doing hot.
Oh,
which basically means he had a fever. So I think he's down and out for the count. But too bad because he's not going to be here for the trim the fat on your jiu-jitsu section.
Yeah, you notice we're down one person. We're trimmed up. Oh man, no, we'll get him back on. Hopefully next episode he's back up to his normal Joseph self, and it'll be fun to have him back on. But that's what's up with that. We forgot to mention why we're missing one of the top 3 guys on the show.
Though I personally think he's either 1 or 2.
Yeah, he's definitely not 3.
Yep, not at all. And I always consider myself either 1 or 2.
Oh, yeah, that's odd. Okay, well that puts me firmly in the 3rd ranking position.
You got that right, partner.
Happy to be there. I'm working on getting a little better. One way I will try to get better as a podcaster is trim up some of that fat, do some things differently, maybe take out some things. So when we talk about, this is a topic episode, and we talk about trimming the fat, we're talking about getting rid of some unnecessary things in your jiu-jitsu. And we've all done this, or we've all been faced with this activity, and in some degrees it happens naturally. If something doesn't work for you, you stop doing it. If you learn a new guard pass and you go a week, you go 2 weeks, you go 3 weeks, and you can't even get to start this pass. Not that you're not doing it. It's just like every time you set it up, you get swept. Every time you set it up, you get triangled. I was trying to work one pass a while back, and I got put to sleep. Okay, maybe I'll do a different pass. Not that nothing wrong with that pass.
You need a nap.
Yeah, I didn't want a nap at the time. So, in some degrees, it happens naturally. You take out the things that aren't really effective for you. So, in the process of trimming fat, we're talking about leaning up your game and honing into a few things that work really well for you. And but there are definitely times where you have too much on your plate. Obviously, some of that considered fat, to where it's another thing about fat. It's delicious. It's an enjoyable part of the meal, but in reality, it can be trimmed. It can make your meal a more effective thing for you. So, some of these things that can be considered fat or unnecessary parts of your jiu-jitsu, or parts that are distractions from your core game, they might be a lot of fun. And not that, your jiu-jitsu could be mostly fat. That's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to tone up your game and make it more effective, you need to trim some fat oftentimes. And I've been told that in my jiu-jitsu, tighten up your game, get rid of stuff that's not really working for you. And that is a pretty quick way to get some results in your jiu-jitsu. Gary, can you think of any techniques that you've had to cut away, although they've been good for you or decent for you? Like, I need to change and transition to something else.
I don't know if I've really ever thrown anything out. Man, you stumped me with that question.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, man.
So for me, one thing that I've definitely had to trim up is my amount of variety of guard passing. And I like a lot of different passes. But when I'm rolling and I'm really working on, staying up and passing the guard, I need to have 2 or 3 that I'm working in between. And that way I can learn how to blend them properly. It's hard to have more than that on the plate. And even sometimes I get the most growth by just saying, I'm going to do one guard pass. I'm going to do leg drags. I'm going to do an over-under. And just trying to make that hammer hit that particular nail. And sometimes you'll find a way through it, and sometimes you won't. But when you are that focused and that lean on your techniques, you really find situations to make it work.
Now that you mention that, Byron, I can think of a situation where I needed to narrow down my focus, kind of like what you're saying. I have taken probably 3 or 4 seminars, plus some private lessons with Rolly Delgado. The majority of it is working on the straight ankle lock, and he really likes it from Ashi. And so what was happening is...
God bless you, Gary.
Bless you. Thank you.
A little late on my joke, but yeah.
Yeah. But so, I had been working it, and it really changed my game around. But I started watching other ankle locks and other leg lock specialist videos and stuff, and trying to add that into my game. And the very last time I trained with Rolly, I was talking about how I've been having good luck with a double outside ashi on a straight ankle lock. And he was looking at me, and we had a talk about it. And one thing that I really thought about his talk was really, until you get this single leg ashi down and have this whole game based off of that single leg and can hit it every single time and have everything down perfect, don't move to the double outside ashi or anything else till you got that. And, I thought about it, and, I was missing a lot of little things. Every time I trained with him, I see little things that I either forgot or I'm missing or I didn't learn before. And, once I really just took the minute levels of this single leg ashi, ankle lock, and, his style there. And, I stopped on purpose of doing the, sometimes I would miss a single leg and I'd move out to a ashi, double outside ashi. And he was really big into, really get this game down. And so I went back to square one and, spent 6 months and really I still try to keep with that little game, that game right there. And it's done wonders for me.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you had a little bit of guidance, and we could all use that from coaches.
So that's the other cool thing is the guidance. Like sometimes you may not see it. Hey, it was working good for me. Hey, that's great. But could it work better? Am I missing something? Having a mentor, having a coach, having a friend kind of guide you through it. Sometimes they're seeing stuff that you don't see. And, that's the cool thing about jiu-jitsu. It doesn't have to necessarily be a coach. It can be a training partner who can see stuff and guide you. And I've been guided by so many training partners who are higher ranked or lower ranked. It doesn't really matter. They see stuff the way I'm rolling and, can make corrections, which, can help me out.
Yeah, being open-minded about stuff. I like the phrase about getting, advice from people is like a blue belt skeptic. So there's a lot a blue belt doesn't know, and they are going to be like a sponge when they're presenting with techniques, but they're also knowledgeable enough to be skeptical. Like, that's not going to work for me. That may not work for any, but like they have that. So I try to approach when someone's showing me something I don't know, especially like, I don't know anything, but if they have less time on the mats or less general ability, I'm always a little bit skeptical. But I'm just that blue belt skeptic as far as that's pretty cool, man. That's really neat. Would it actually work? And not with some magnifying glass of being over analytical about it, but just kind of a little bit of skepticism with it, and those big eyes, like, yeah, this is cool. Like the white belt, I think everything is cool. Like they have yet to put those shades on yet, where some techniques don't work out for them, and so every new technique is going to be the next best thing. As by the time you're a blue belt or got some time on the mats, you've realized a lot of the stuff that I'm getting shown doesn't really match up with me very well at this point in time. So I like the blue belt skeptic.
Yeah, I remember those days, just showing so much, and I do remember saying, "Hey, this isn't going to work for me," But the one thing I've always noticed is stuff that I'll say isn't going to work for me. 3-4 years down the road, all of a sudden that move is working for me. And even if it doesn't become my main move, it's nice to learn that stuff. So, I also think about the other part of the fat there, Byron. If we throw it out and you just discount it, you're not learning it to defend it, And I just think sometimes I like what you were saying. You're coming in at positive. I've heard so many people say this isn't going to work, and once you have that attitude, it's down the drain. It may not fit with your game. It may be kind of tough for you, and not working, or just for some reason it just doesn't mesh for your game. Maybe then you throw it out. But I still think it is so positive that you have learned something. And who knows, maybe down the road you may be more mobile, or you may have changed your game around a little bit where now it fits into your game. You have been exposed to it. You know how to defend it, but now you're adding it to your offense. And, just going back to that point, I can think of a sweep I saw here not too long ago. It was kind of a sweep into the 411. And I just remember looking at that, and I was like, there's no way I can make this work. And here I am saying this, and I just told you the opposite. I'm trying to be positive over everything. And I looked at this, and I was like, I don't think this is going to work. But the cool thing is I drilled it, and I drilled it, and I drilled it. The first day, I probably did, 25 to 50 reps and trying to learn this move. And man, it took me a long time till it actually felt halfway comfortable. But that was against a non-resisting opponent. And, so then I tried it during regular roll. And, man, I hit it like 4 times that day. Missed it a couple other times. But I was like, man, this is kind of cool. Now I've been hitting it so much that people are stepping back or putting their weight back so I can't, get my hips under theirs. But then I'm just leading into another sweep. So, here's one thing I just looked at on the surface. And sometimes I think maybe because I'm an older grappler and I don't move as well as I used to, that some of this stuff that looks a little more tricky isn't going to work for me. Like, my head the inside of my head is messing with my skill, with what I can do. And sometimes I shouldn't listen to that.
Yeah, there's a balance there to be played as far as how skeptical you should be, because you don't have unlimited time and resources to train every technique that comes your way. And
it'd be nice too.
I'd wear out. I'm only able to do a certain amount of training.
Could you imagine,
per day or per week?
Like they talk about artificial intelligence, and Byron and I train with a lot of police officers, and one of the police officers I was talking to last week was telling me that down the road, we may not have police officers. They may be artificial intelligence robots.
RoboCop.
Yeah. I mean, I never would have thought that. But you imagine, like, if for some reason our brains were so wired that we could, maybe we should get Daniel Coyle on here. But can you imagine if there was some way you could implant something into our head where we know every single jiu-jitsu move? Every move ever invented. Wouldn't that be something?
That would be, yes, that would literally be something.
Yeah, there's no fat because we would be good at it all.
Yeah.
Know it all. Man, that'd be impressive.
That's outside of my realm at this point in time, Gary. So,
yeah, but think about that. Everybody says it's outside of their realm. Maybe we could make it work, Byron, and become millionaires.
Yeah, we'll work on that.
Yeah.
We'll write that down, Gary. And
okay.
It's on top of the list. So unnecessary techniques or techniques that don't work well for you, or maybe great techniques that aren't appropriate for you at this time. If you're developing your spider guard and you're dead set on that, you've put 3 months, 6 months onto that, and you're really hitting your groove, and you just saw a cool video about a guard pass. You have to make that decision. Is this guard pass right now for me? Is it the fat? Is it unnecessary? Or do I need to finish up fine tuning my spider guard stuff and put that on the shelf for later? Sometimes this stuff will store pretty well, and sometimes it just goes away. And sometimes we're presented with a lot of this fat, and not necessarily in a negative way, but during a seminar or maybe just during the average month of class. So in a seminar, you might go in and they show you 1 or 3 techniques and you hammer those down. And those techniques may or may not fit your game at all. But you still did the seminar, you participated the best you could, you definitely expanded your knowledge base. But whether those techniques are going to fit your game or you leave them on the side, that's up to you. We've all been to seminars where they've showed 10 or 20 techniques, or they did, what do you want to learn? And then everybody contributed a question and they showed something to that. Well, by definition, a lot of that will be outside of your realm of what you're working on in your game. So a lot of that's going to be fat. But there'll be hopefully one or two key takeaways you can get from that type of seminar that can have a potentially game-changing effect on what you're doing. So just kind of know that fat is presented all the time in anything you're learning, even your class. Say you're that spider guard guy, and this week or this month we're working takedowns. You still show up and you still work those takedowns. You still learn those the best you can. But when it comes to rolling, you're focusing on your spider guard. You got to get to your spider guard as quick as you can to get the reps in on your attacks from spider. And for now, that would have been trimmed. And you need to come back to that some other time, obviously, but just kind of focus your training and try to avoid the tasty things that are outside of where you want to be.
Man, that's a great point, Byron. And we were kind of talking off the air before we started podcasting here today.
You mean the technical difficulties?
Well, even before that. No, but I was talking to Byron about DVDs, instructionals. And, there's so many out there. I have so many of them. And I'm a very slow learner. I go in these things in depth and I go on, to them for a long time. And I do run into that. It's like I'm in the middle of working one part of my game. Let's go back to, say, spider guard. But, Byron comes and shows me something new, and then I'm caught in a quandary. Should I work on what Byron showed me? It's great because I did learn something. Or do I stick with my spider guard game like Byron was talking about, as soon as you roll, get into that spider guard. So, yeah, you can have an overload of information, and I think that's where you're getting at, Byron. You need to trim some of that and, make stuff relevant. What is working for your game? Otherwise, you'll, have a whole bunch of tools in your toolbox, but you won't have very good tools. They won't come with a lifetime warranty.
Yeah, or the store doesn't close down right after you buy it and you can't take it back.
Yeah.
So sometimes fat's beneficial or helpful. And I think of this as being exposed to those techniques that I know I'm not going to add this into my game. I don't play a gi reliant game, so I get to play the same game whether I show up on a gi night or a no gi night. I'm doing basically the same technique. So that takes out spider guard, any sort of a lapel guard. I don't really play that. But when I'm exposed to that, and it's the technique that we're learning tonight or this week or this month, I really take it in and I do my best to learn it. I'm not really working with it much, maybe a little bit to kind of see what it's about, but it's definitely not my focus. But that can be helpful because there's always going to be people around that have questions about things that you're not really that good at. Just the other week, somebody was asking me about passing the knee shield type of half guard. I don't end up with people in knee shield very much just because of the way I pass. I just avoid the half guard altogether. I don't like to deal with it. I don't end up in a knee shield, and if I am there, I don't pressure into it. So it's just not a type of a guard I find myself in very often. But I've definitely been through several classes on how to use the knee shield, for offense, if you're from bottom, and how to pass the knee shield. So just last week, somebody's asking me, "How do you pass this stupid knee shield? I get stuck here." And I had some good answers, and they were effective to that person. But if I only ever focused on my game, I had no fat, in my diet, in my jiu-jitsu diet, I would say, I don't know. I don't really run into that guard much because of my style of passing. But I had some knowledge, and I was able to kind of pull from that and show some techniques that I had learned. And I'm confident that they were decent techniques because they were shown to me by somebody who is good at it. I just was lucky enough to remember them. It's always easier to show techniques that you do a lot and that are part of your A game. But people are going to have questions outside that. So the learning things that aren't in your A game, perfectly fine. It's a good thing to do, but it's just not your focus.
Yeah, that's kind of like what I was talking about earlier. We are going to learn stuff that just doesn't fit my game or I'm struggling with it. But that's a time where, you don't just pack it up. You learn from that, because I'm going to get put in that position. Let's say we're learning, how to pass knee shield. But for some reason it's not working for me, but I am going to get put in that position, even though it's not what I'm working on or it's not my bread and butter. I do need to know it. And like I said, there are so many times something didn't work for me when I was first shown it, the second time I was shown it, the third time I was shown it, the fourth time I was shown it. But then, 3 years down the road, it now starts clicking. And this happens to me all the time. And now it becomes my move. And it all started from that day of being shown. And even though it may not be my bread and butter, like you said, I learned it from somebody who it does work for. And, maybe that person's not there for practice that day. And I remember it, I can show it. And who knows, maybe it's going to work for this person. But, like you said, all fat is not bad. There is we need it to keep us warm and to give us energy. And, especially when we're hibernating, it's going to allow us, energy or food and nutrition while we're hibernating.
It makes you famine resistant as well.
Yes.
So one part about this, you might be thinking, if you're pick a position, and if you've got like 5 answers for that, and you don't know which one is your better one, or like you're just all over the place with your training, you might think about, maybe I need to trim some fat. Maybe I need to narrow it down just a few. That way I could hone my skills in a couple of different categories. So, how do you do this? And a big part of trimming the fat from your game, trimming the techniques that may not fit well with you or may not belong with your style of play, is to kind of evaluate your game. The cool thing about this is you have a whole bunch of teammates helping you evaluate your game all the time. So if you can't pass somebody's guard using this guard pass, they're helping you evaluate that guard pass isn't your best guard pass. If you're always getting submitted in the same spot, every time you end up at someone's close guard, they get you in a triangle choke, or every time they get side control, you can never recover. They're constantly showing you either your strong parts of your game, the ones that are working, definitely not your fat part of the game, or they're showing you weaknesses, parts that they're able to exploit or get a hold of and make you, end up getting caught in something. So your teammates help you evaluate your game. They're not just catching you in leg locks like Gary does to me all the time. He's showing you, hey, Byron, you got a weakness, and it's your feet. And maybe defending my feet against most people is I feel comfortable. But I know when Gary is going after my legs, I'm in a lot of trouble. And so it's all relative. A lot of people attack my feet, and I don't sweat it. I work to get out, whatever. But as soon as Gary starts going for my feet, I know that's definitely a weakness compared to what Gary's able to bring offensively. And I need to do something about that pretty quick, or just tap, because it's going to be over pretty soon. So your teammates help you evaluate your game. Don't take it as a frustration. Don't take it as, they're better than you or anything like that. It's just certain aspects of your game match up differently with other people. And look at that to help you evaluate, what are your strong points? Like, what was the last time I tapped Gary with? What technique was that? I don't remember. I can't remember that. But that would be one of my stronger techniques. So if you know, okay, what were your last 4 or 5 submissions that you got on somebody who was a similar skill level as you? Those are good techniques. Those are not your fat. You do not need to be trimming those. You need to be sharpening those, getting those 6-pack abs.
Though, I think I love what you're talking about, evaluating the game. I love how you brought it down, narrowed the focus down to, what have you been tapping out people at your same skill level? Those are the ones you need to sharpen it. But I love the evaluating your game part. I also think, too, like, they're telling us it may not be my special point. I can think if I rolled with this guy here, 6 months ago, and this person destroyed me on my back. It was like a backpack that I couldn't get off. And, I didn't think of it like what you're saying, but that person evaluated my game for me. That person told me I have a weakness once you're on my back. I need to get better at it. And I have been spending the last 6 months me and one of my training partners, every time we roll, we start on each other's back. And we've been working not just defensively, we have been working offensively too, which is going to make me, I guess I kind of threw that part away. I guess I was considering, back escapes fat. And, now I realize that my back control wasn't as good as I thought it was once I've really delved into this. And my back escapes, which already were exposed, were evaluated by somebody else. And now I have shored some of that up. Maybe it was fat before, but now I'm putting it into my better parts of my game. So it may have been, I consider it fat, but now it's still not my A game, but I plan on getting it to that point because somebody evaluated my game for me.
Yeah, they showed you a little bit of a weakness in your game,
yeah,
and you have answered that correctly by addressing that.
Yeah.
And you're in a bit of an arms race with a teammate. You start
arms
back,
race,
I start on your back, and you're both training. The beauty of this is not you trying to escape the back. It's also him trying to attack you when he's on your back, and then it's the reverse. So it's double training. You're both getting good work, and that's a great environment to be in, Gary.
Yep. And I also like the other point you made. Let's go back to what are the submissions that you half tap people you equal skill at. Those are the moves that are not your fat that you shouldn't give away. But I like how you talk. Those are the ones you should be working on. Those are the ones you should be micro-tuning. It goes back to our brick analogy. What is that move when you're in trouble that you're going to pull out of your tool bag, and hit them like a brick? For me, it's going to be a Kimura. Everybody's got their own, but that's one thing I do work on. I devour every little bit I can find about a Kimura. I'm always trying to fine tune it and getting it better. It's not something that think I'm good at. I'm just going to try to keep getting better and better and better at it. But I think when you brought up that point, I think that's an awesome point to get better at your non-fat moves, at your lean muscular moves.
So the last thing I wanted to bring up here is when to add fat to your Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And that may sound like, what are we talking about here? We wanted to get our games, fine-tuned. We want to get just our A game boiled down. You need to remember your why. Like, why are you doing this? And if part of that is because it's fun, part of that might be because you like to learn some things, it's okay to do techniques that may not be like your A game or even potential to be your A game. So, hey, I want to, dabble in these, this type of a weird sweep that was highly situational or something like that. Like, that's fine. If it's fun, like that's a key element to sticking with jiu-jitsu for the long term, is to have fun. So if you're only doing the same two techniques, the same two takedowns, the same two guard passes, the same two submissions from side control, you might run into a little bit of boringness, even if it's working well and you're taking people down, you're passing their guard, you're getting that submission. It all might be working really well, but it might be kind of boring. It might stagnate with what you're enjoying. Throw in some fat. You do something a little unusual. Do something a little bit out of character, and you might find that, man, that was a lot of fun. It doesn't work real well for me, but man, it's fun. That's a cool technique, and if I get it 1 out of 10, I got a big old smile on my face. So don't think as fat as totally a negative thing. It's also a way you could find new things that do work well for you when you taste a little bit of this cake over here, this pie over here. Man, that works great for my game. I didn't think it would. Like Gary was saying earlier, he didn't think that sweep was going to work. He tasted it a little bit, and he tried it, and he worked on it, and sure enough, he's getting it sometimes. And Gary said it's a lot of fun when it works.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I had a smile on my face, and kind of at that point, I was getting a little bored. We go back to the why, like you said, Byron. I train for fun. I train to push my body and mind, learn new stuff. I train to meet new people. I'm not going to be a world champion. I don't train for that. And sometimes I think I was just getting a little stagnant. I think kind of like what you said, it's getting a little boring, a little stagnant. I need to break out of that rut. I need to try some new stuff. And hey, if it puts a smile on your face, the job's over. You won. And that's what it boiled down to. And now I'm trying to do that same sweep on just constantly on everybody. And people probably try to get sick of rolling with me because that's all I'm trying. But I'm having a good time. And like Byron said, that first time I hit it, there was a smile on my face. Even when I miss it, I'm like, hey, I tried. It was a smile on my face. But I think what I really getting out of this is it was something I didn't think I could do. And when your mind isn't there and you actually find out you can do it, that's a big accomplishment. Even though my percentage level isn't very high, if I try to hit this on Byron, he's going to make me pay for it. But, I have pushed beyond that barrier. I have done something that my mind was holding me back, and I'm having fun doing it, which keeps me in the gym. So, that fat adds flavor, so that was good flavor.
Oh, yeah. Fat, that really does. So the fat adds, that's a good one, Gary.
Oh, thank you.
We've made up some interesting concepts with this about getting six-pack abs with your jiu-jitsu and not, like really lean and mean, but flavor, adding that fun. That's a big part of it. And another time you could add some fat and do something that's not typical of your game is when you learn it. So if there's a technique of the day or something, like your instructor shows you, a sweep that you're not good at, and you go to roll, try that sweep out. Like, yeah, it's not going to work very likely, or, you end up, your opponent really expects everything. They just saw this technique also, so they kind of know what's up. But if those techniques work, A, you remember them really well, and B, you get a little confidence, and maybe this is a technique that's not going to be fat for you. It's going to be something lean and mean. And that's another time to add some fat. If you get an opportunity to do the technique that you just learned, go ahead and try it. I mean, we're here to learn. We're here to get better as martial artists, try new things. Those are all good. Gary, this has been a low-calorie episode.
Definitely a low-calorie episode. We're talking about beef, fat, and, it kind of reminds me of, riding a bull.
Oh, yeah, that's scary.
Yeah. Hey, for the last couple of weeks, we've had a article of the week about different sports and how it relates to jiu-jitsu. And, this week we have one from liveabout.com, Bull Riding Basics, How to Stay on a Bull. And before we even get into this, I want to tell a story about a training partner I have, and that was the guy I was talking about that we're working on back control together. And this guy kind of looks like a mini Arnold Schwarzenegger in his prime. He's not a very tall individual, but he's built like Mr. Olympia, and he's the farthest thing from a cowboy. He's a city boy, if you can call it Wichita City. But Byron, you know him. Would you think of him as a guy who rode a bull or anything of that sort?
No, I would not.
Yeah. So out of the blue one day, he tells me he's not going to train this weekend because he's going to like a 5-day bull riding school down there at the Kansas-Oklahoma border. And he was telling me as one thing he's always wanted to do, and he's going to try it. And, first of all, I didn't know much about riding a bull, but I was like, good luck. Hey, and can I have all your rash guards and grappling shorts? Because I don't think you're going to make it out alive. And, but, so he ended up going through that class, and I go to work with him. We work together. So I saw him before we did any grappling. I saw him at work, and he said, hey, I might have to take a couple of more days off of work because I'm so beat up from riding the bull. But what I thought was kind of cool, he'd been a guy who had done jiu-jitsu for, 6-7 years, not sure how long, but pretty good amount of time at that point. And, never rode a bull, never rode a horse, that kind of stuff. And, he told me he showed up there and, because Mike would be totally out of place with a bunch of cowboys. And Mike said everybody showed up. They had a pickup truck. They're all wearing a cowboy hat. They all got boots. They all have their own spurs. They all got chaps. They got everything. And Mike showed up in his Chevy Cavalier, just Mike. and no cowboy hat, none of that stuff. And, they went through class, they were taught how to ride, and, started off on like high school bulls and then moved up to college bulls. And to be honest, I didn't know the different classes of bulls till Mike told me about them. But the crazy thing is, Mike said he outrode everybody, had the longest ride. And here's a guy who had never done, rode before, took this class. A lot of the other people had ridden before, but, just came back to the class to ride some more and this and that. But, I really thought, and, talking to Mike, he was telling me he did well because of the basics, the stuff he had learned from jiu-jitsu, getting on somebody's back, like we were just talking, working back control, and here I am squirming to get out. It taught Mike balance, stuff of that sort. He really knew how to squeeze with his legs. He had good grip strength from, everything we were doing at jiu-jitsu. But that's kind of what made me, why I pulled this article. Byron tasked me of trying to find an article about some oddball sport, and not say this is an oddball sport, but a sport, and try to relate it to jiu-jitsu. So I found this article. It's by Stevie Casey, and it's from 2018. But it's a great article, and it talks about different things that are vital to doing to riding a bull. And first of all, his first point is training is vital. To the untrained, you're like, man, 8 seconds, that's not very hard. 8 seconds is not a very long time. I get on Byron's back. I was like, man, I can ride him definitely longer than 8 seconds.
Oh, it's getting weird, Gary.
Yeah, I guess you're right. That doesn't sound right. But, Byron's not, a 4,000-pound solid muscle. I mean, he's like a 98-pound pencil neck geek. So there is
and I have plenty of the fat that's going on as well. That 98 pounds.
Big difference.
Need to trim up.
Yeah, you need to trim up. But you can't just get on there and, just ride a bull. Just jump right on. I mean, you can, but you're not going to do very well at it. Training is vital. If we want to learn jiu-jitsu, we go to a school. I'm going to go to Fox Fitness. I'm going to go train with Rolly Delgado at Westside MMA. I'm going to go train with our buddy Tim Sled. These guys are experts. We're going to learn from the older, experienced riders at local rodeos. We're going to learn from the older, experienced jiu-jitsu guys at local schools. Training is vital. If you want to get good at it, observe your trainer. Listen. We talk about that all the time. Listen. Your instructor's telling you and showing you stuff. Listen. Watch. Ask questions. There are no dumb questions. Don't be afraid to ask a question, but learn from these experienced people. The more rides, you have under your belt, the more experience you'll have with a variety of bulls. The more open mats you go to, the more classes you go to, the more experience you're going to have with different levels of jiu-jitsu people, and it's just going to make you better.
Yeah, that's good. And getting that mentor is what really they recommend. Find somebody who rides bulls, talk to them, learn from a person who's got experience, and they'll get you set up and head in the right way, because it's definitely not a place where you go in and make a lot of errors and have a long career. I have no interest in bull riding. It sounds terrifying.
You're going to be over your head really quick if you don't get the proper training.
My feet will be over my head immediately, basically.
Yep.
That's not where I want to be.
Yeah. Another point. Well, you told me. Never mind.
Dang.
Yep. Another point he makes: get the proper equipment. Jiu-jitsu. We need the proper equipment. If I'm training gi, I need a proper gi. I need a belt. I need gi pants. If I go to a tournament, they're going to kick me out if I don't have the proper stuff. No gi. I really want to have no gi shorts, rash guard. I don't want to show up in jorts and, somebody's going to break their fingers. My training partners aren't going to like me. And the bull riding, a thick leather glove. It's going to save your skin. I'm going to be having to grab ropes, twisting around their hand. So I do need, the proper equipment. They talk about a bull rope. I need a good bull rope. I'm not totally sure what that is, but they say you need a bull rope, rosin, stuff like that. So same thing, for jiu-jitsu. I need the proper equipment, to train train properly and to be the best I can become.
Yeah. One of the things I see as a mistake more often, like if you go buy a gi, if it's a jiu-jitsu gi and it fits decent, you're in good shape. Like that's pretty simple. There's a lot of good quality gis out there, and most of the gi companies that make bad gis don't exist very long. So it's really likely you'll buy a decent gi. Maybe not the best gi in the world, but buy a decent gi. For the no-gi crowd, a common mistake is to walk in with a medium-sized build and be wearing an extra-large shirt. That is super annoying. It's actually a little bit dangerous for your teammates. Like your fingers get twisted up in those things in your shirt. The shirt's in the way. It shouldn't be part of the jiu-jitsu is me having to untangle my hand or my foot from your way oversized shirt. If you're going to wear a rash guard, great. That's what they're designed to do is just not be a factor in the grappling and keep your skin clean. If you're going to wear a t-shirt, wear one that's like a little bit snug. And it's safer. It's less likely to get snagged and ripped apart anyway. That's a common mistake I see a lot of people is they just want to wear an old beat up t-shirt and it's 2 sizes too big anyway, when it should be maybe 1 size too small or just a little bit more form fitting. That's a common mistake. I know you've seen that before too, Gary. Another tip that he has here in this article is to watch the bull. And this one, I like this one for jiu-jitsu. So sometimes, before you get on the bull, which I could imagine how scared I would be. I'd be in my Chevy, my Toyota Corolla, all scared and not want to get out to with all the anyway. Watch the bull. So is the bull, being aggressive towards other bulls? Are they kind of calm and relaxed? Like these things are a little bit of a clue to what you're going to deal with when this terrifying thing happens to you that you've signed up for. Another thing, sometimes the bull, I guess, will be rode more than once in a day. So if Gary is going to ride Big Pete and, hey, look, I got Big Pete after this. That's not a very funny bull name, but that's the best I could do, Gary. So I watched Gary ride Big Pete, and Gary and this Big Pete was nothing but like a tornado. It spun around a whole bunch of times and that sort of activity. I need to watch Gary with that, and I could expect possibly a similar thing to happen. Maybe this bull always spins to the right instead of like bucking or dipping hard. Like it has lots of stuff. I don't really know what it means, but just by watching. Same thing with jiu-jitsu. If you're able to watch your opponent before, maybe first round comes through, you win your match, and then start watching other people, have their matches and try to learn a little bit of information. If you can't do this, hopefully your coach can. They'll be able to give you a little bit of insight on what your opponent's going to bring to you in the next match. And just by watching, you know what to expect a little bit more. I thought that was a good one.
Okay, so now we have watched, what was his name, Little Pete? Big Pete?
Something like that.
Yeah, now we've watched Big Pete. Now it's time to hold on tight. And, I like this one. The author's talking about, use your thighs to squeeze. Your riding arm is essentially your balance point during the ride. He talks about staying close to the center of the back to keep them sliding off. And, this is all the stuff we do in jiu-jitsu. Our balance is key. We learn little things like that. How to use your legs, like you said, to squeeze on the opponent. And, those are very important things to ride a bull and be successful in the jiu-jitsu and wrestling match.
All right, Dad. It's a fun article to just take another sport, learn about that, and then see what we could bring back over from that into jiu-jitsu. Bull riding basics. How to stay on a bull is the name of the article. We'll put a link to it in the show notes and check it out. And maybe you're a bull rider. Maybe you have a little bit more input or deeper knowledge based on that because we don't have any depth of knowledge in that sort of category. But I do want to give a shout out to a couple of our Patreon supporters for their continued support. I want to thank Brad, Keith, and Nathan. They have been our loyal Patreon supporters for a little while now. What they've done is they've heard an episode and they thought, you know what, I want to support these people at the BjjBrick Podcast and be part of that team and help them out. Doesn't take a whole lot. You can pitch $1 in every episode. That really makes a big difference. We run this thing on a shoestring budget where we try to do things as effectively as possible, and every dollar that we get helps us out. And go to the link in the show notes for Patreon and make a pledge. And at the end of the month, you'll get charged, $3 or $4 or wherever you want to pledge. It really helps us out quite a bit. I'll mail you out a 5-inch BJJBrick gi patch, and if I still have the old legacy style of patches, the throwback patches, the numbers are dwindling, but I will send out those as long as I have those, and also send you out a BJJBrick sticker. Post that thing anywhere you want, and we'll be happy to represent on your item that you choose. Also, we have a private Facebook group, and this group is for a couple of our training partners, and really is a bunch of our Patreon supporters are in the group, and we'll bat questions back and forth sometimes, or talk about topics or ideas, and kind of talk some trash on there as well. It's kind of just a fun behind the scenes private group.
Yeah, especially talking trash about me. That happens a lot.
It just kind of it's just fun, and for some reason that happens quite a bit.
Yeah.
So,
hey, also tell all your friends about this. If you're, seeing our posts on Facebook, please share it. Share the podcast on Facebook. It's a good way to get other jiu-jitsu people to listen to us, and we really appreciate that. That's the biggest form of flattery we could get.
Yeah, we're not at the point where we have a budget to get a bunch of ads and make a big push on social media or in a magazine. I don't know where we'd put it anyway, but
Byron's do rely in a lot of magazines.
We do rely a lot on word of mouth. So if your training partners would enjoy the podcast, tell them about it. It really means a lot to us that you would do that, and maybe you'll get a friend listening, and you could share hey, did you listen to that this week? And tell them what kind of a thing you might have picked up, or a tidbit you might have learned, or how we made fun of Gary or Joe for not even being here. So yeah, it really means a lot to us when you spread the word of mouth, spread by word of mouth.
Spread the word of mouth.
Yeah,
that sounds like a disease.
Yeah, that's what Joe got.
Hoof and mouth disease.
That's what Joe got. If
Joe's
you get sick,
poor Joe, hoof and mouth disease.
Those toe holds didn't go well. He's there too close to his own face.
Yeah.
If you do get sick, and we're coming up kind of on that season, that the flu's going around and colds and stuff like that, take the time off the mat and make sure you're not contagious before you get back on there. That's just a basic respect to show your teammates. Don't go in when you can get people sick. If you have the flu, ringworm, anything that somebody can catch,
hoof and mouth disease, whatever
it might be, take the time and heal up. Do some off the mat training. Maybe do some school style of training when you dive deep into learning a technique, or hit some weights or some stretching. Just do something. Stay active, but don't get your teammates sick.
Byron, do you get a flu shot?
I do get a flu shot, Gary.
I just got mine yesterday.
Are you okay?
I get one. Yeah.
Pretty easy. I've never. Yeah. So we'll talk about this before we go. Get your flu shots. I remember as a kid, getting a shot was like the worst part of being a kid. It was something I would dread all week. If I'm getting a flu shot Friday, it ruined my whole week. Like, I didn't want my parents to tell me, until it was almost there, because I would dread this whole thing. And the best part, like after getting a shot, was I would say, how long until my next shot? And they'd be like, a year or 2 years, whatever. I'd be like, yeah, that's a long time away. I really.
So what did your parents do? Say they're taking you to McDonald's?
No, they would tell me.
Doctor's office?
No, they would tell me, and I would just dread it.
Okay.
For the day or two beforehand. Hey, Byron, you got a shot in a couple of days. Oh no, But now I go get a shot, and it's literally something that I can almost ignore. Like I don't really feel it. I think I've talked to people who have given me shots. Some of them say that the needles are so much sharper now or smaller now that they don't have as much pressure, to go in through the skin, and it doesn't hurt nearly as bad. And part of it's probably mental. Maybe I've gotten a little bit tougher from jiu-jitsu, dealing with those sort of discomforts, but it literally doesn't bother me at all.
I think it would be the lack of muscle you have. So, you have very, 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 very little muscle and a lot of fat that you haven't trimmed. So I think it just goes in there and you probably don't feel it.
So when I go get a shot, I always will start to drop my pants, and usually they get upset.
I was joking with coworkers because we get this done at work. They come in every year. And, I was telling my coworkers when I go in there, I'm just going to drop my pants and see what they say. But I chickened out.
Oh, well, they probably just have a good laugh at everybody. Right, Hugh.
Yeah.
It's never what you want. It's then to laugh at you.
Never what you want when you drop your pants.
Oh, that's bad advice. Don't do that. Anyway, we've had a good time, and we hope to bring Joe back next week. He should be better and not contagious, especially over Skype.
They gave him some cream to put on his mouth and hoofs, so he should be better.
Oh, he's all lathered up right now. I'm just happy thinking about that. But until next week, Joe's going to stay lathered up, and you're going to stay sweaty, my friends.
And don't forget to shower. Train hard, train smart, get better.
We'll see you on the mats, guys.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.